Hello everyone, I'm Leng Jun. Today I'm going to share a movie with you. A story of an extraordinarily beautiful fox fairy, Lady Xin 14. The 14th daughter of Xin family willingly gave away 30 years of her life for a dishonest scholar. Mr. Feng of Guangping lived during the period of Zheng De Emperor. When he was young, he was frivolous and indulged in alcohol. Often got drunk with his bad friend Mr. True. One morning, he went out on a donkey and met a young girl in the forest. She was dressed in red and had an attractive appearance. Her laughter was clear and melodious, just like a fairy.
只求醉，但功名。人生如烟又如梦，何如闲云野鹤，作醉翁。
When Feng approached, the girl had disappeared without a trace. He felt as if he was dreaming, and he still remembered it for a long time afterwards. In the evening, he went to wait at the place where he encountered the girl again, and he really heard the girl's laugh again. He followed the voice to a house, and a white-haired old man received him. Feng openly proposed marriage for himself to the old man, saying that he wanted to marry the girl, who was in red and swung outside today. Although the old man had a good impression of Feng, his wife was in charge of the marriage of all his 19 daughters, so he had to discuss it with his wife. But the old lady didn't like Feng. After the old man came out, he took out some wine to drink with him, and then told Feng that he did not match his daughter. But he was drunk at this time. Hearing that the marriage he kept thinking about was broken, he immediately broke into the backyard and offended the beauty. He sighed and regretted after being driven out by the old man's servant. And then he found a mansion not far away, whose owner, Mrs. Xue, was actually Feng's distant relative. She was so resourceful that she not only knew what Feng had just experienced, but also told Feng that the girl he liked named Lady Xin 14, the 14th daughter of the fox fairy Xin family, and also was the smartest and most beautiful daughter of the Xin family. Therefore, it is impossible for the Xin family to marry their best daughter to an alcoholic who speaks foolishly. Feng hurriedly knelt down and confessed his mistake and swore if he could marry Lady Xin 14, he would never drink anymore. Mrs. Xue saw that Feng was so sincere, so she was willing to fulfill them. She had seen Lady Xin 14 grow up from childhood, and she listened to Mrs. Xue the most. So with Mrs. Xue as the matchmaker, plus that Lady Xin 14 had also liked Feng, seeing that he was willing to give up drinking for her, she also agreed to this marriage. Lady Xin 14 took a pearl hairpin from her head and gave it to Feng as a token of love, and make an appointment to marry her the same day next month. The gorgeous mansion disappeared after dawn, and Feng found himself by a grave. He immediately understood that his dead aunt was helping him last night. After thanking his aunt, he went home and waited for the wedding day to come. On the wedding day, Feng went to greet the bride happily, but he waited for 3 days and 3 nights, and still didn't see Lady Xin 14. When the bearers left one by one, Feng also returned home angrily. Only then did he discover that the bride had arrived home. Then came the night of the bridal chamber. Happy times always pass quickly. After dawn, Feng looked at Lady Xin 14's dowry. A large urn. Lady Xin 14 said that this was for saving money. We could slowly accumulate less into more. In the future, in case of natural and man-made disasters, it could be used as emergency reserve. Feng disagreed. How come there would be so much trouble? Soon, his friend Mr. True came to congratulate him on his marriage. True heard that Feng's newly married wife looked as charming as a fox fairy, so he came to meet her. Of course, Feng didn't want other men to see his beautiful wife and just prevaricate. Lady Xin 14 in the inner room found that True was an indecent man. Excessive drinking, frivolous speech, and arrogant demeanor make him look like a bad friend. After True left, she advised Feng to cut off contact with him as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would bound to be harmed by him in the future. Seeing her worried look, Feng took her suggestion. From then on, he never responded to Chu's invitation ever again. This is annoying for this noble son, who has always been complimented. He vowed to make Feng pay the price. So, at a poetry party not long after, he deliberately prodded Feng by saying he was afraid of his wife, to make Feng break his vow and get drunk. The drunk Feng began to be arrogant again, bluntly yelling that his literary talents and knowledge were better than Chu's. This time, the good brothers of the past had been completely torn apart. It had been a long time since she started to wait for her husband to return home, so Lady Xin 14 was panicked. After a while, Feng came back drunkenly and told her about his experience of arguing with Chu today and completely defeating him. Lady Xin 14 was angry that he broke the promise he made and understood that Feng's actions today had already planted a curse. If he does not quit drinking, sooner or later, trouble will come. The imperial examination was held as scheduled, and Mr. Chu relied on his family's relationship to get the first place. After Feng learned about it, he made a scene at home. Wasn't his talent, fame, or knowledge better than Chu? How come he was only the second? Lady Xin 14 persuaded him that Chu was only relying on the power of his family, and we should regard fame and power as nothing, so there was no need to worry about it. But Feng couldn't swallow the frustration of losing to such a mediocre person. At the celebration banquet of Chu, Feng obeyed the words of Lady Xin 14 at the beginning, neither being too humble nor overbearing, and did not drink any wine. But how could Chu let him get away easily? He deliberately took out the fine wine he treasured. Feng was fooled as he planned, and soon broke his vow of not drinking alcohol again, and publicly revealed that Chu only relied on his father's official position to get the first place in the exam. Seeing that Feng had not changed and not kept his oath after repeated faults, Lady Xin 14 expected that he would make a big mistake in the future and wanted to run away from home angrily. Feng hurriedly knelt down to admit his mistake, and only then did Lady Xin 14 tell the truth. It turned out that when she was young, the Buddha predicted that in the future her husband must not drink alcohol, or something terrible would happen. Therefore, the father of Lady Xin 14 treated Feng with fine wine when they first met. Seeing that he was addicted to alcohol, he categorically refused the marriage. Later, it was because of the oath of quitting drinking that Mrs. Xue was relieved to marry Lady Xin 14 to him. Unexpectedly, Feng became frivolous and arrogant after getting married, completely disregarding his original vows. This must cause a catastrophe. Lady Xin 14 couldn't bear to see their separation, so she would rather say goodbye to avoid sorrow. Feng regretted it, knelt down and confessed his mistake, and made up his mind to quit drinking. Only then did Lady Xin 14 reluctantly forgive him. The young couple had another period of peaceful and beautiful life, and a lot of money was accumulated in a big urn. It didn't take long for Lady Xin 14 to be pregnant, which made the family happier. But all this was just the peace before dawn, and the prophecy of the Buddha was about to be proved. Although Mr. Chu's wife was also beautiful, she was mean and jealous, and she couldn't tolerate others being more beautiful than her. Recently, Lady Xin 14 had stolen her spotlight, which made her extremely unhappy. So she asked the maid at home who was more beautiful, she or Lady Xin 14. The maid didn't dare to tell the truth nor lie. Just as she was hesitating, she accidentally smashed Mr. Chu's jade hairpin. That was her favorite hairpin, so she took up an incense vessel to smash the maid dead out of anger. Mrs. Chu panicked after committing a murder, and quickly went to find her husband, Mr. Chu, to discuss countermeasures. Mr. Chu thought of a vicious plan that would metaphorically kill two birds with one stone. He tricked Feng into his house and got him drunk again by using the excuse of giving him a piece of inkstone used by Wang Xizhi. After Feng was drunk, Mr. Chu put the body of the servant girl by his bed, and then framed Feng for being drunk and failed to rape and thus committed murder. Coupled with the influence of his family, Feng was quickly imprisoned. In prison, he refused to plead guilty, was beaten and tortured extremely painfully. When Lady Xin 14 heard the bad news, she fell ill and bedridden suddenly. Feng still did not listen to her advice in the end, so she couldn't avoid this doom. So Lady Xin 14 ignored her own illness and went to visit her husband in prison. She persuaded Feng to confess his guilt, pretendingly, so as not to be tortured again, and give her some time, and she would surely save Feng from prison. Feng felt sorry for his wife, who was pregnant and worrying for him. He told Lady Xin 14 to take care of her body and stop visiting him in prison. Coming out of the prison, Lady Xin 14 went to ask Mrs. Xue for help. But Mrs. Xue saw that she was haggard and her body had reached the limit, where it was really not fit to run around anymore. So she asked servants to send her back to her natal home. But Lady Xin 14 couldn't let go of Feng, and she was willing to use her 30-year lifespan in exchange for her temporary rejuvenation. However, the advanced use of life requires being burned and eclipsed, which is not something ordinary people can endure. But Lady Xin 14 was eager to save her husband and would never regret. After experiencing the suffering of burning fire, Lady Xin 14 finally regained her energy, but she was a fox fairy, and she was stopped by the gods several times when she tried to sue in the imperial court. In desperation, Lady Xin 14 found Lu'er, Feng's former admirer, and begged her to tell the truth for Feng in the imperial city. Lu'er still liked Feng silently until now, so she agreed without hesitation. Lady Xin 14 gave her all the money, saved in a big urn as travel expenses. And then she traveled all the way to the capital. God helps those who help themselves. Lu'er succeeded in filing the complaint, and Mr. True and Mrs. True were finally taken into prison. Feng was proved to be wronged and returned home. Lady Xin 14 told Feng specifically about the fact that Lu'er risked her life to file a complaint for him. Originally, the emperor was also attracted by Lu'er's cleverness and beauty and wanted to keep her as an imperial concubine in the palace to enjoy the glory and wealth. But Lu'er was thinking of Feng with all her heart and returned in the end. Feng couldn't help but be greatly moved. Lady Xin 14 also told Feng about her lifespan reduction and persuaded him to marry Lu'er as his concubine. But Feng refused, because he only had Lady Xin 14 in his heart. Soon, Lady Xin 14 was rapidly aging due to the use of early lifespan. Seeing that she was about to disappear, Feng cried desperately. He would rather use his 40-year lifespan in exchange for the future health and youth of his wife. When Lady Xin 14 was dying on the bed, Lu'er took care of her extremely carefully. After the death of Lady Xin 14, Feng followed her last wish and married Lu'er. And the child she left behind, Lu'er also regarded as her own child. One night, Lady Xin 14, who had become a celestial being, came back to see her child. It is very gratifying for her to see that Feng is enjoying a happy life now. She asked the child to tell Feng that she had become a fairy. Don't miss her too much. It is often said that a good wife is better than 1,000 hectares of fertile land. But if there is only a good wife and no good husband who can manage good land, then all this is in vain. Encountering such an incompetent husband, even a fox fairy would have to reduce 30 years of lifespan, which is even more difficult for ordinary women to bear. The image of Feng has been creating chaos for Lady Xin 14 since his rants, his intrusion into the backyard, until the end of the film, as long as he would kneel down and confess whenever he made a mistake. But he would just do it over and over again. He had hardly done any good deeds to establish a positive image. Such a man has two kind and pretty women who both loved him so much. Even if he has talents to earn extra credits, it is still unrealistic. The people who looks impressive but worthless will make generous and kind people like Lady Xin 14 want to divorce after some time, let alone ordinary women. A series of wives killing cases reported recently told us all single men and women must be cautious in choosing a spouse, must not get married on impulse to avoid troubles in the future. That's all for our movie sharing today. I'm Leng Jun. See you next time.